Hi, welcome to GrrCON. I'm Andy Mansfield from Juniper Networks. I'm on SE. I specialize in the security line. Have about 10 years of managing networks for a managed hosting provider. Just moved on over to Juniper recently, so they asked me to come out here and give a little talk. One of the things I did a lot in the past was manage the enterprise WAN for big, small, all companies. So figured I'd talk about a few of the things. It's going to be a little salesy, I'm sorry, and I didn't get permission to do anything cool, but we're going to go through it. There's a couple of new products I'm going to talk about down at the end of the line. So one of the things we all know is that there's 54% of the data breaches are happening to the servers that we manage. There's 60% of breaches took weeks or months to discover. So there's a lot of hacking going on from all over the place. There's, frequent every 7 minutes and all that jazz. So there's a lot of things that we're going to have to be careful of nowadays, especially because it's costing us all money and keeping us up at night and keeping us busy. And one thing I've noticed, like the server field, everything is pretty cyclical in regards to how WANs are managed. It used to be the old, everything's tunneled back from the remote sites up through an MPLS cloud to a router that's directly hit over to the server, so there's no latency between the users and the applications that they're trying to get at. And then the only firewall was really between the internet and those servers. So there was no real protection from the edge sites where people are bringing in their laptops, their phones, all those other things that could be already compromised and all of that. In addition to that, the cost of MPLS lines is getting more and more expensive, whereas local internet is much, much cheaper. So I've seen a lot more companies moving towards this model where there's a local firewall at each site that's kind of making decisions in regards to what path the data is going to follow. Everybody's getting a local like Comcast or some sort of DSL line and just funneling internet traffic out there. And especially with the advent of things like Office 365 and all these other things, a lot of local internet's happening. So in addition to the one big firewall that they're also placing between the users and the servers now and the internet, there's also all those other smaller firewalls and security devices out at the edge sites. And in addition to the services they provide, it gives guys like me and maybe some of you guys a whole lot more work to do in regards to managing all these devices. So one of the things Juniper has moved to is central management with a security director in Space, which is our overall management platform. So one of the things that Space does is it makes it real easy to see, you have one central pane of glass to manage all your devices. You can apply profiles. So in regards to the second slide I showed of the network, there's a certain set of policies and profiles you're going to want to apply to every site, but you don't necessarily want to have to manage them all individually. So what you can do is just set it up as a profile and say every site gets this set of policies. I'm a CLI guy myself. However, there's certain points that the nice GUI is helpful for just at a glance or letting your junior guys do the work for you. So it's another just view of the rules. The other nice thing that they're adding into it is we want to see beyond just what sites are using what kind of data or what bandwidth. We want to be able to see who's using what applications are using most of the pipe. And most of that's available through the CLI, but there's nothing beats a GUI for just quick little dive down. I mean, we're all using Splunk and things like that now to look at our logs as opposed to just streaming the syslog.py, using tail or something like that. So the central management really helps with, the high level insights of all the different uses that are going on in the WAN, so you can be sure of what's going on and how to make all that happen. The other thing that's nice with the central management is a threat map. We know that nothing good's coming from South Korea, nothing good's coming from China or Russia. So being able to see where your traffic's coming from and be able to hover over the region, dive down a little bit deeper, see what's going on, it's pretty helpful. From there, we just have the basic dashboard that has a lot of different options for different users. There's over 38 widgets that you can set up on your own personal dashboard to be able to get the information that you want at the front. And then the other nice thing is, much like a lot of the SIEM tools you're used to, we're moving towards a visual representation of the event logs. There's a time span selector. You can dive down in by clicking on the different sites. Obviously, the different utilizations show up in different colors that you really make it stand out for you. You can check out the trends and the aggregation, and drill down in, as I was saying, and then the different GeoIP country flags and the ability to just do some quick scanning. So that's just a real high-level overview of what we're doing with the central management of the Layer 7 security. So I know everybody thinks of Juniper as the backbone of the internet, and we're pretty strong in the switching market, but my own personal opinion, I know the SRX has taken some hits back in the day, but they've definitely moved a whole lot of improvement into that line with the spinning off of the Pulse product. Everybody's dove on the SRX, and the advances that have come through of it have been pretty nice. So along with the device being a really functional high-end router with everything up to and including MPLS, the Layer 7 inspection and ancillary security services, it's pretty much an all-in-wonder box. So everything from the app track to see which applications are being used to the app firewall, which is pretty nice. Instead of just saying, hey, port 80 is blocked or open, we can say Facebook post isn't cool, but YouTube watching is. Being able to throttle the applications based on what they are as opposed to just the port is nice with the app QoS. But the two that I'm really going to focus on more of today is the IPS, well, more than two, the UTM and the security intelligence, SCI, advanced threat protection, and the SSL proxy, which is an extremely nice functionality in regards to being able to take a look into the encrypted sessions that are going through the device. So basically what this is just an overview of the packet path throughout the SRX as it's diving in. So you got all your basics of, screens, which is just basic layer 2 security through the NATs and all the other zones. What we have is we've dove in with the application identification, which is helping us to enable the deeper control over what's going on our networks. So I'm just going to skim through this just exactly where it goes. But in that last step there of the services, that's where we hit that full suite of advanced security functionality. Now, this is a basic flowchart that shows how the app ID works. So it's going to do a full check through the entire packet and make sure that it does everything it can to identify the actual application. And it's not going to let some evasion techniques throw it off. So it's going through the ICMP first, and clearly it tries to identify it if it's that. If it's not the ICMP, it's going to go through other known protocols and dive down deep in. So what this slide's really showing is that we're going to dig deep and make sure we know what we're dealing with. This just shows an overall screenshot from Space's security director that kind of shows the options that are available with the app firewall and the IPS. So as you can see, it's not just saying HTTP or SMTP. It's actually diving into showing it's Adobe Connect or Adult Friend Finder. I know the sales department uses that quite frequently at most offices. But the more important thing that we're dealing with is the SSL proxy. So what you'll see is if it's an outbound connection from a user to the internet, the SRX will actually intercept that SSL connection and perform a man in the middle. So it'll decrypt between the user and the SRX, look through the packet, re-encrypt and complete the connection out to the server. That way it gets an actual deep insight into what's going on. So there's no tunneling over SSL that you can quickly evade most other products. And then also on the way back in, it's going to do the same thing. So if you have a web server behind the SRX that's hosting an SSL web page, It's gonna, you're gonna go ahead and load the cert on the SRX. It's gonna decrypt, inspect, pass it along, and we're just gonna make sure that that nothing bad's getting through. So one thing that Juniper does that kind of leverages us from the competition is we have a dedicated team that's set to researching the vulnerabilities and the emerging threats. Clearly, we're in the industry leading response time due to our release of signature updates, which are daily, even down to the hours and minutes for emergencies. And we also have an open signature database. I just want to run through some use cases that we all have seen before and that we know about. So we've got the server protection, which is from the internet down into the server. We've got the client protection, which is everybody's bringing their laptops into the office now, right? You don't know what they picked up at home and what they're going to be bringing into your network. So you're kind of protecting the users or the servers from your users also. And then on top of that, we've got just user-to-user internal attacks that we're keeping an eye out for. So when we're dealing with the IPS, there is a ridiculous amount of signatures out there that none of us want to manage by hand. And what the Space plugin does is it kind of makes it easy because we can sort by groups, be they applications, category, severity. Then one of the really nice features is recommended, which is somebody else is making the decisions as to what they think you need to protect against and what you might not need to, because that's a couple of full-time jobs in and of itself of understanding what's actually a threat, what's a false positive, what's a real positive, moving on from there. Another search functionality that we have is by keyword CVE ID, which has been quite helpful for me in the past of customer looking around on the internet, getting a report of, hey, this bug's out there, how are you going to protect it? And I could just go ahead and search by that bug and go, here you go, it's protected. And then also by bug track, which is a nice one. The other thing is we have the open attack database. So the attacks are written to protect against vulnerabilities rather than a specific exploit, which means everybody's heard of like the LOIC or something along those lines. So instead of trying to identify the actual script that's being run, we're going to look at how the vulnerability is functioning and protect against any tool that's attacking that as opposed to a specific tool. Now, the other nice thing in the differentiation between us and a lot of other IPS devices out there is you don't have to run it through all connections just to focus on specific attacks, right? So with it being later in here with the firewall policies itself, as it packets running through the protection algorithm, it's going to hit a policy, and it's only being called if it's on HTTP or HTTPS, and that's where we're going to look for the Facebook and YouTubes and things like that, not necessarily on other ones, but that's all up to the individual network admin to go ahead and make their decisions as to how they want to apply it, but it definitely makes it easy for us. And the real nice thing, especially for a lot of you guys out there, is we have the ability to pull PCAPs for analysis after the fact. So if our device recognizes an attack is happening, you can go ahead and set it up to pull a PCAP and send it off to you, so you can run it through any forensics that you want later on. And there's clearly a full suite of those tools available. The UTM architecture is pretty simple in regards to the full antivirus, anti-spam, web filtering. You guys all know how this works. The enhanced web filtering is basically just showing you it's going to go through the engine of identifying based on either URL or activity. The new anti-malware is it's purpose-built for the edge devices in regards to it's looking more for attacks on individual computers as opposed to servers, things along those lines. But onto the device or the products that I really wanted to talk about. So the security intelligence, it's a platform that connects a whole lot of ideas together. So we've got Space as a central management platform with a security director, and the SRX are doing the work. But there's also a VM that runs that's called Second Teller, the Spotlight connector. And what it does is it ties everything together. What it boils down to is there's a Spotlight secure service that runs in the cloud, and that reaches out to the connector. The connector is kind of the central point of between security director, the SRX, the user or the admins, and Spotlight Secure. And what this does is we all know that there's a list of known bad guys out there, for lack of a better way to say it. And what the connector does is it pulls from multiple different lists of command and control servers from GRIP lists. Then you can also do custom black and white lists. And the really nice thing is this happens every 10 to 15 seconds. So the firewall is making the decisions as to if it's blocked or not. The connector is pulling all of the information together. Security director is where you manage it from. Spotlight Secure is the cloud-based service that's a third party. It's kind of your own additional security department that's out there identifying threats and things along those lines. The overview of how it all works is right here, where the connector is pulling from Spotlight Secure from the API feeds. And that's actually something I should dive into. So all of these things combined is what we put in the box for you. But along the lines of everything that Juniper does, there's an open API. So you can write your own scripts to go out and pull from your own sources and push in the different rules as you want. And in regards to the enterprise WAN and why this is nice is, let's say that you find that there's one specific site that's attacking one location. You go ahead and update just the connector. The connector pushes this out to all the individual firewalls immediately on your own without a commit or without any real config changes. It's just real time, pushes it out, and all those other sites are protected from that one attacker that you're aware of. So, as I just said, it happens without the commits, and the second tell receives the dynamic feeds from all the different sources that we've spoken of, from the cloud, from your own lists, and it's continuously updated with a full team of people 24/7 getting those lists populated. The platform itself, it gives us the flexibility to add your own information, as I was saying, either through the APIs, through the whitelist, or through the connector itself. And going over that. So I'd love to be able to give you the list of where we're getting that information from. However, it's confidential for multiple reasons. But there's a full security suite of people and organizations out there feeding us this information, and one of those sources is what I'm going to be getting to in a minute, of a different application that we're going to be putting into here. So the custom black and white lists, you can do CSV formatted lists, which is pretty nice for having one department going ahead and keeping track of what's good and what's bad, pulling from your SIEM. You can get output from that and really push the limits as to how you're going to pull this with the API, because you can take the information from anywhere and really get a list of what's bad and what's good. All right, so some of the use cases are going to be pretty simple in regards to the user protection. So one of the main things that we're always looking for, especially with the remote users on enterprise WAN, are command and control nodes. So what'll happen is you'll be using your device at home, pick up some gunk, some malware, something like that, And the number one indicator that is reaching back out to a botnet command and control node. So we're keeping a list of those together, and that's the number one list of things of devices that will identify as being bad. And clearly we push that all back through the control node and feed the rules as we go along. We can pull this in from an existing WAF or IDS, so it doesn't even have to be necessarily Juniper gear, and it's all tied together in that regard. One of the other nice things that this can do is not just identify remote devices that are bad, but once we do see that a device internally is infected, it can update your firewall rules to block that user from reaching anything else, as opposed to even just anything on the outside world. Running low on time, so I'm trying to get up to, I think we get all of this. All right, so this is the other platform that is going to really help us feed into the list of, I'm going to keep calling it bad guys because it's easier to say, is the Sky Advanced Threat Protection. What Sky Advanced Threat Protection is it's beyond your typical intrusion detection. A little bit ago, Juniper bought a company called Mykonos, and their big thing was, as opposed to intrusion prevention or detection, but deception. And what it will do is there's a chain of techniques that we put together to collect information. So instead of just blocking an attack and pushing that off to the side and having the attacker just change their tactics, what it's going to do is it's going to funnel them off to a sandbox, and it's going to keep giving them what's the word? It's going to keep bringing them in deeper, giving them more and more things to try to attack. That way we can further fingerprint them and add them to our list of known offenders. And the thing that's nice about that is it's off to the side. It gets pushed up through a whole different cloud service. It's unknown to the attacker, and it just keeps them busy as opposed to blocking it, and also allows us to identify and fingerprint the new tools and attacks as they come. The other thing that this does is it caches the lookups, so they can be completed in under 2 minutes. There's a series of AV engines that run up in the cloud also. So generally the known virus and malware can be identified in under 10 seconds. Then there's a static analysis. But what really sets us apart is the ability to recognize unknown zero-day attacks and begin to fingerprint them and add them into our list of known attacks by using machine learning to really do the isolation of attackers and attacks. So the first thing that happens is the attack will come through. It'll be checked for a cache and static analysis, and if it's blocked, nice. If not, it's going to keep going on to the dynamic analysis. From there, that's businessy stuff, and then it also pushes back into that Spotlight Secure system that I was speaking of before, with the full list of already known command and control and GUIP and custom lists along those lines. And it's going to continue sandboxing it and using the remote analytics to identify what's going on. Where's the slide that I really want to get to before I gotta go? Here's the one. So one of the really nice things that'll happen with the advanced threat protection is before it lets a download complete, if the SRX identifies it as being a malicious file, it's going to hold the last few packets. So the device, the end computer never actually receives the full package, and so it can't really be infected. The other thing that's nice is there's always that fine line between security and functionality. So there's a tunable function for if it's going to take a little bit too long, it'll go ahead and let the download go through, but it'll still continue processing it and identifying what's bad, and alert your engineers so they can go investigate the device later. And if it then finds that the download that went through was bad, it will go ahead and block traffic from that site, source, or that file for future uses. So, I mean, we get all this together. So instead of going on further with that, anybody have any questions? I know I ran through a whole bunch real quick, and a lot of you've heard before. But is there anything? Yes? Did you say, is there built-in functionality for bringing in new lists, you said? What kind of devices are you referring to? Yes, so anything that's going to be flowing through the firewall or the SRX, which would be the center point for actually watching that, you can use all the API hooks for any and all information that you want. So if a new IP comes through, if a new MAC comes through, you can go ahead and write a script to pull that in and populate the bad guy list. I'm sorry. Yes, very much so. I think I saw another hand. No? No more? All right, well, I've also been asked to invite you all to go by the Great Lakes Computer booth. They're giving away a drone. You have to stop by and sign up for right now, and then there's an after party tonight at the Bob from 6 to 9 on the 3rd floor. So come by for some drinks and food and have some fun. Cool, thank you.